as a business owner or entrepreneur, you need to show up with your best professional self when you're out there in business or on TV or in radio, right? But is your voice is as important to your image as everything else? Well, today on this episode, my guest is going to explain why your voice is should be as polished as your wardrobe when you're putting yourself out there. But you know the drill. If you want to learn what she has to say, you're going to have to stick around to find out. Welcome to Waist Up Wardrobe. I'm Christine Vartanian, an attorney turned personal style expert and image consultant. As the founder of Jade House of Style, I am passionate about unveiling the inner confidence of my clients by developing their personal style and dressing them for success. But is getting dressed up still important in our virtual world? Well, that's where my experience can help with what I call Waist Up Wardrobe. Waist Up Wardrobe is a podcast for all things you need to conduct an outstanding Zoom meeting. It's about how to dress for the camera, but it's not just about the clothes. It's about everything you need to know to show up on brand and professionally for the camera. Join me in the Waist Up Wardrobe studio to discuss how to navigate this virtual world and dominate from behind the desk. Welcome, Waist Up Wardrobe Nation, to another episode of Waist Up Wardrobe. This episode is going to be so interesting. Not only is it going to be interesting, but it's going to be so informative. So you all know I'm an image consultant, and I work with my clients to build a knockout wardrobe that helps them stand out in the workplace or even on a daily basis. And I build head to toe wardrobes, but I also design their spaces to be a billboard for their brand and or their studios that I design from ceiling to floor. So the work I do has everything to do with the entrepreneur's entire image. Today, we're going to focus on one little area of an entrepreneur's image, and that's their voice. Now, nobody ever thinks about that. So today we're going to actually take that area and really dive deep and peel back the layers of why that is as important as every other part of your image and brand. But before I get started, I want to say thank you to my super awesome producer, Rick Moscoso, who's always in the green room, making sure this episode and all other episodes are running on time, on point, technically correct, and making us all look good on camera. So thank you to Rick Moscoso. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Waist Up Wardrobe. You know that we are on all different platforms, right? We are on iTunes. So if you're taking a stroll on the beach, you don't have time to watch us, you can certainly listen to us and learn a little nugget to take back to really creating that overall knockout image. We are on YouTube. We're here on Facebook, streaming live every Thursday at 11:30 with a brand new fresh show to really help you elevate in every area of your brand and your business. So I'm going to stop talking about all the housekeeping and all the administrative stuff, and I'm going to dive right in and brag about our guest today a little bit, and that is Susan Murphy. Susan Murphy has a philosophy, and her philosophy is you can't shoot at a moving target, and I want to learn more about that. But she's been in the broadcast industry for over 40 years. She's been on a radio news director, a TV news reporter, a weather girl back when we used to call that title. I don't know what we call the newscasters that talk about weather anymore, but anyway. And she used to be a talk show host and producer for radio, a public television producer, and on-air personality. Oh, she's done it all when it comes to being in media, right? A college dean and instructor, a voiceover artist, and now a broadcast voice coach. Well, we know why she has the credentials to be that, but please help me welcome Susan Murphy to the show. Hi, Susan. How are you today?
I'm very well, Christine. I'm so delighted to be here today. And now you know why I say you can't shoot at a moving target. I've had more career reinventions than Madonna. So I like it that way. Because in the broadcast industry, you always have to be ready to pivot. You always have to be ready to see where the niche is that isn't being filled. And that's what I've done my whole entire career. And I've loved every second.
Oh, that sounds awesome. You sound like the legendary business owner, entrepreneur, really targeting what is needed in the industry, right? And filling the gap. Yeah.
Yep.
I love it. I'm really excited to get into all the, the details of your work. But before I get started, I always like to have a little 60 seconds to get to know the guests, kind of like some personal stuff that maybe you
Oh,
weren't expecting to be asked. Is that
okay.
no, it's not, they're not scary questions. We just want to get to know you a little bit better. So
Sure.
let me ask you, Susan, are you a morning person or a night owl?
Oh, good grief. I am definitely a morning person. I worked morning drive most of my career, and I still, to this day, get up between 3:30 and 4.
Wow. There was a time when I used to get up that early, way back when I was in my early career. Uh, and I always thought, gosh, I can never get used to getting up at 4. And now I naturally get up at 4:30.
Mhm.
But
Don't we get a lot done between 4:30 and sunrise? Isn't it amazing?
yes, the
Yes.
peacefulness, just you get this jump start on the day. It is pretty incredible.
Yep.
Okay, one more question. Radio or TV? Is it like
Radio.
I was gonna say
Absolutely
it's like
radio.
asking who's your favorite child, right?
Yes, almost. It is like Who's My Favorite Child. Radio to me is such an intimate medium. It's a little bit like podcasting, although, of course, now we have the pictures to go with it. It's eavesdropping on a conversation. It is theater of the mind. So I will always go back to my first love, radio, love television, but if I had to pick, radio.
Wow, that I love what you said. You said theater of the mind.
Mhm.
I'm gonna remember that. I might even
Paints
use
a
that.
picture.
I'll give you
Yep,
credit. That is a great way to
yep.
describe it. Wow. Okay. Well, I am very excited to have this conversation with you. And I read your bio, and obviously you've been in so many arenas that
Mhm.
requires kind of showing up in that the voice image and how important that is. TV, radio, all the public stages you've been on. But let me ask you, what actually led you to start a voice coaching business?
I had moved to North Carolina from New York about 8 years ago, and about 4 years ago, I was flipping around channels, and I would see different news programs and watch these young reporters and anchors do pretty well with their writing. They would shoot a good story, they could ask a good question, but their voices just didn't seem to rise to the level of what their on-air work could be. And I quickly figured out why, because I've known it for years. When I was coming up in the business and you graduated from college, you went straight to radio. That's what we did. You didn't go straight to TV. Well, now radio, there are fewer and fewer opportunities, and the kids go straight to television. And yes, it's all about the technology, it's all about the video, it's all about making sure, you've dotted your I's and crossed your T's, and nobody ever talks about their voice. And
Mhm.
I firmly believe that the voice is as important, if not more important, than the video you are watching. So I sort of hung out my shingle, uh, kind of test drove the process with a news director friend of mine who sent me 2 reporters, wrote me a lovely recommendation and on LinkedIn, and the business grew from there because there's truly a need for young people to learn more about their voices, learn proper breath control, and then all the other things that go along with that, which includes things like writing and TV presence. And it's just one big package that I get to teach them because they never got it in school. And for me, this is a real joy. It is my life's passion.
Oh, that's it's so wonderful. It's interesting. So many of the things that lead to success or happiness or joy really are the things that we've never really taught classically at school, right?
True.
And it's so interesting. And like when I say that, I think about things like money sense, how to stay healthy, how to eat, how to, all those things that we really aren't um, taught that
Mm.
somehow the world thinks it should just be innate, which it isn't. And we teach our kids so many other things, but these skills that can lead to success and rising as you mature are so cool. I keep uncovering more of these things, and so um, what you said really resonates. So do you think that when somebody is speaking on camera or radio, does their voice, do they have to get into a certain different area of their voice, or do they speak with their regular voice?
That's a very good question, phrased as you asked it. It's a little bit of both.
Okay.
I believe that everybody's voice is as individual, perhaps, as your fingerprint. And if your eyes are the windows to your soul, you know what? Your voice is the front door. And
Mm,
whether it's right or wrong, people will judge you not only on how you look, Christine, you know that, but they judge you on how you sound. And
yeah.
particularly when you're in the public eye, everybody has an opinion. So, what I do is I try to get my anchors and reporters and meteorologists and sports people to speak with what I call their natural pitch, so that we're not creating anything, we're not making something up. I'm just helping you find where your natural pitch is, and it sits at the bottom of your diaphragm. It's lower, richer, warmer than most people know. Not everybody needs my help, but I would say 60% of the broadcast community could use a little voice work and breath work. So what I teach is finding that voice and using it builds confidence. That's where confidence lives, the bottom of your diaphragm. Because when you are hesitant on the air, when you are breathy, or when your muscles are too constricted and your pitch rises, and pretty soon this is what you sound like, and this is a lot to listen to in a newscast,
Yeah.
drop your shoulders and breathe, which is 75% of the work. And then you can really start to do the work that a journalist should do. Shine those lights into those dark corners, illuminate, simplify, make the news accessible to everybody. And you have to do it in a way that people enjoy listening to, or they won't stay with you.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I remember when I first started my podcast 3 years ago, right, during the pandemic.
Mm,
I remember I had there's so much nerves around getting on camera live, and I don't have that anymore because I've been recording for so long. If somebody wanted to interview me or put me on a podcast, or I don't have the nerves that I'm of being live. But I do remember back then I did, and I also remember that when I'd listened to some of my shows, I sounded like it was my tone was so high that I thought,
mhm,
that's painful to listen to, you know? It's because it didn't feel comfortable to listen to, and I really had to pay attention and dial and figure out, what would be, and I think it was nerves. I think that's what it was. I'm not quite sure what it was. I mean, I've gotten, used to being on camera so that and more relaxed, but yeah, definitely, people can be, um, uncomfortable to listen to.
mhm.
And
That's
that's not
exactly
what
right.
you want when you are in this line of work, when your part of your work is to be visible on in media, right? So,
Mhm.
you make a really interesting point that it's kind of a learned behavior for most.
What is to be able to speak well on camera, or
Yeah.
yes. Uh, it's not taught anywhere, and most of us aren't aware of it. We're just talking, right? Now, a
Mhm.
lot of times, go easy on yourself, Christine. Engaging conversation, really interesting topics can cover a multitude of sins when it comes to voice. So I would rather listen to someone who is passionate and a little over the top and just so excited to be on the show, rather than someone whose voice is so measured that it might sound a little bit put on. But you are right that if you're watching a news broadcast or watching a documentary, the voice does have to sweep you up and take you along with them. So, a couple of tricks, tips, hints on how to be a little bit better on mic or on camera is never a bad thing. And when you think about it, any conversation you have with a spouse, a child, a boss, your audience, anytime you speak to someone else, it is public speaking. So learning just do a few more things to control your breath or to control your pitch or to control the speed at which you're speaking can just make the whole experience a whole lot more enjoyable. And your listener may not even completely understand what it is. They just know they like it more.
Yeah.
So what I do is help reporters kind of get into what I call the zone that allows them to use a really beautiful, God-given, natural pitch when they're anchoring or reporting.
Yeah. So let me ask you, can you give us one or two quick tips that somebody might be able to put right into action if they're really trying to work on the skill?
Sure, I've already done the one,
Yeah.
and that is at all times, you need relaxed shoulders. And I learned this from a singing teacher about 25 years ago. I was cast in a regional theater production of Footloose, and you always put me in the chorus. You give me a couple of lines, I can do a dance routine. But I got cast as one of the mothers, and they sang a duet. A duet? Me? Whoa. I scared to death. I had 6 weeks. So we called it triage singing lessons. And I learned an awful lot from that wonderful teacher, and a lot of it is carried into my business. But the most important thing I ever learned from her was that the body part that has more to do with your pitch and your breath is your shoulders. If you keep them relaxed, a lot of things happen. First, everything relaxes up through your jaw and into your face and in your neck. When you keep your shoulders relaxed, it also loosens the muscles around your rib cage. When they are tight and constricted, which most of us do, we carry tension and stress in our shoulders all day, every day, from about the time we learn to walk until we go to sleep. When we sleep, our bodies do revert to belly breathing, as I would call it. But most of us are just tense all day and we're breathing in a very shallow sort of way. They call it clavicular or conversational breath. So I just remind you how to breathe into your belly. And I can do it in 7 words. Drop your shoulders, breathe into your belly. And one way you can test to see if you're doing it right is you take a flat hand and put it right below your rib cage, just above your belly button, and push. What you're pushing on, more or less, is your diaphragm, which is a muscle that is cylindrical and very long for a muscle. It is attached to your lower ribs, and its job is to push air into your lungs. Air does get into your lungs other ways, but most efficiently, it should come from your diaphragm. So when you learn to relax those shoulders and breathe into the belly, and if your hand is still below your rib cage and above your belly button, breathe in through your mouth. And if you're breathing all the way into that diaphragm, you're literally blowing it up like a balloon, and your hand pushes out. And then when you exhale, it flattens again.
Yeah.
So that's how you can test whether you're belly breathing.
Yeah.
Relaxes your shoulder and it brings your pitch down to where it probably should be and live all the time. So that's the easiest little
Yeah.
tip and trick. And every time in a conversation, presentation, whatever it is, every time you stop to take a breath, you drop your shoulders, breathe a little bit into your belly, you can reset. I call it the zone. Your pitch will come right back down and off you go again. So every time you breathe, you get another chance.
Yeah. So it's remarkable because, I interviewed a yoga expert last week or 2 weeks ago, and everything and there's been other topics where everything comes down to your
Yeah,
breath.
sure does.
Isn't that interesting? So
Yeah.
just love to see that common thread. That's really good practical advice. I love the practical takeaways because people can actually, put it into action. Because
Mhm.
talk about it, we can learn about it, but until we apply it, we really just, it's all just education. But learning and applying it is totally different.
And
Yeah,
as my voice teacher said, Susan, at the beginning, all you can do is notice. So you might not be good at it by tomorrow. This is not a light switch. It takes practice. And what it also takes is undoing what you've done your entire life, which is to tense muscles and breathe shallowly, and the pitch of your voice rises up. So it takes a lot of concentration to not do that and to breathe into that belly. But the more you do it, the easier it becomes, and pretty soon it's muscle memory. And then all your conversations are warmer, more natural, and much easier to listen to the person on the other side.
Interesting. So it's almost like a muscle. Your voice is a muscle that you
Yeah,
have to exercise.
absolutely. Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You often say, or I've read where you've said that you have to keep the audience in mind when you're speaking. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Keep the audience in mind.
Yeah, like
Yes.
who the audience is.
As I say to my reporters, you don't work for the news director. You don't work for the general manager. You don't work for the TV station. You know who you work for? You work for me, the viewer. Why? Because I can turn you off.
Mhm.
So, yes, it's all about the audience. They are who you work for. They are who you are talking to. They are who you are teaching things. I think reporters are very often teachers. So your audience is foremost always in your mind. You have to think about, what do they need to know? Why do they need to know it? What's in it for them? Why do they care? So you could be doing a story about an incoming snowstorm, and severe weather, of course, is in its category all its own. People obviously need to know how to stay safe. And if you're doing a boring city council meeting, okay, what about that meeting does my viewer need to know? And how can I explain what happened in that meeting in a fair, reasonable, both sides kind of way? So, yes, it's not about your speech, it's not about your presentation, it's about your audience. For example, let's say you had a room full of doctors, cardiologists, and they were listening to a presentation from one of them, and they can use as much medical cardiologic jargon that they want because they're all the same audience. Well, let's say you had a panel of doctors in a room full of donors to that hospital. You wouldn't speak the same way in trying to explain what you do and what your specialty does for that hospital. You would explain it in a way that your audience can understand. So it's always, always about the audience.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. And it's more about like it is also about communicating effectively, right? So
Mhm.
you can say anything you want in any way that you want, but the goal is you want to be able to articulate it and communicate it in a way where they can receive it. So, and it's so true about really keeping in mind the audience, because your audience could be a group of preschoolers
Mhm.
one day, and then it could be a group of doctors the next day, or it could be lay people who want to learn a little bit more about how to get through, labor pains. It's just it's the audience, and it's not. It's about being aware that if you want to be effective, if you want them to be influenced by what you're saying, if you want them to get it, you have to speak to them. So
Mhm.
that really makes a lot of sense.
And you don't necessarily have to speak to all of them.
Mm,
That way, that's a setup for failure because you're never gonna get all of them. So
yeah.
you speak to who you're if you're in a room full of people, you wanna speak to the decision makers. You wanna speak to the people who are more likely to carry your message forward. You wanna speak to the people who are very much connected to what it is you're talking about, and that's not gonna be everybody. So you wanna think about the best people in that audience as to how you want to get your points across. Now, on television, you have a very wide variety of people, although TV viewers tend to skew older, but TV, not viewers per se, but folks who have the TV on and they're making dinner, they're brushing their kids' teeth, they're kind of keeping half an ear on you. You have a whole range of viewers and listeners. So you sort of have to seek the common denominator, which
Mhm.
is why broadcast writing, everybody accuses the media of dumbing it down and you don't explain all of it. And not exactly true.
Yeah.
Our mission is to amplify and to simplify and to bring that message to as many people as we can. And so, is it simple? Yes. But like they say, if you take a complex situation or a complex thought or a complex breaking news situation, and if you don't completely understand what's going on there, then that means you can't explain it to me. So, first, a reporter's job is to completely understand what it is they're trying to do and what they're trying to do with that story, and then repeat it in a way that will engage the vast majority of your audience.
Yeah. Yeah. Except if your audience are teenagers, then you have a hard time. Like, that's the tricky one. The reluctant listener, right?
Yes, and that's the audience that needs the visual cue. That's the audience where you ask questions. That's the audience where you use a lot of pauses. That's the audience where you really try to make that eye contact because you're right, that's a tough crowd.
Yeah, it is. Do you is there somebody in TV or, media that you think has an outstanding TV voice?
Oh, there's a question no one's ever asked me. Um, an outstanding voice. Well, the one person who comes to mind, and she's not in TV news, although she played a communications expert in The West Wing, and that is Allison Janney. Allison Janney's voice is used in so many commercials, you have no idea. And her voice is often held up as one of the great, listenable, nuanced voices for commercials. So I would say certainly Allison Janney is one of those. In the news realm, I can't say as there's anybody that absolutely mesmerizes me,
Yeah,
but Allison Janney comes to mind.
interesting. And then how about, like, your favorite online snafu, disaster, that story that's happened that you is just so memorable to you?
An on-air thing that happened to me?
Well, no,
Mhm.
that you think is your favorite kind of, disaster story on TV or media, on
My
air.
favorite disaster story, it could have been mine. It was I was a brand new reporter in West Palm Beach, Florida, and this is where I was a weather girl, when they could call us that,
Uh-huh.
and back then, it was so primitive, we didn't have green screens. We literally had a map of the United States that was magnetic, and I had, like, suns and cold fronts and warm fronts and clouds and storms that I would put all over the map, depending on what the National Weather Service maps told me, and when we did that during the show, somebody had to be behind the set to push a bar up, which lowered the map behind me. One weekend, it was the late Sunday broadcast, and we had a new guy on the desk who volunteered, "Oh, I'll do the bar," it was called. "I'll do the bar for you, Susan." So, there's, like, a cue in the middle of the forecast where I'll say, "Let's take a look at the national map." And he, not having practiced, used all his strength to push the bar up. The map came down, almost hit me, and all the weather symbols fell off.
How
And
much ratings?
the only thing I thought to say out loud was, "Good grief." And I you have to go on, so I talked about, "Well, imagine sun here and a cold front moving in here," and I'm I'm trying to get through this, but the more I'm trying to do it, I'm going to lose it momentarily. And fortunately, we had this long weather crawl thing, the temperatures around the nation, and I would call for the temperature thing. And as soon as that video came up, I fell to the ground laughing. Everybody in the control room is hysterical. And I had 90 seconds to stop crying, laughing, to like pull myself back together. Fine. We did it, finished the forecast. I walk back into the newsroom and the hotline is ringing. And that can only be one person. So I gingerly pick up the hotline, and all I hear is hysterical laughing. And the general manager, complimented me on having handled the weather symbols that all came down. And I did not see, but I heard that blooper did make it to the National White House Correspondents' Dinner that year. I have looked high and low for it, but I can't find it. So
Interesting. Oh, that's such a good story. Such a funny, good story. So as we get close to wrapping up the show, is there anything you just really want to share with the audience that I haven't really asked you about?
yes. And this is primarily for women, but it does affect some men as well. So
Mhm.
I work with you on giving you tips and tricks and tools to find your best natural pitch. And I can work with a young woman for, say, 5, 10, 15 minutes. And most of the time, I get there. But 15 to 20% of the women I work with can't get there. Their voice just won't shift. And I came to realize why. And what I have learned to do gently is to ask them about growing up. Ask them about their school years, their relationships with parents and grandparents, and were they treated as whole human beings growing up, or were they pushed aside, or were big brothers the people who got all the attention and not so much them? Or did dad only ever show you attention when you were being girlish and your pitch was very high or breathy? And come to find out that that's usually it. There is something in their background that they won't let go of, that girlish voice, because it served them in some sort of way. Now, girls' voices don't change in puberty, boys' voices do. So for women, it has to be a conscious effort to step into a grown up voice at some point in your teenage years. And for the young women who don't, sometimes just working with them a little bit to think about, were they bullied? Were they not considered important in their family? Whatever it was, and we just gently touch upon it, and sometimes their eyes fill with tears, and they've said to me how healing this can be. I never thought I'd be going into therapy, becoming a voice coach, but I've learned how to gently do it and to allow them to give themselves permission to step into that voice that has been there all along. They just didn't know it. They just didn't know how to use it. And then you want to watch confidence grow? It To me, that is, yes, they pay me to do this, but the psychological income is priceless for me to watch a young woman step into a more, not serious, but a confident, able, unafraid to talk in a boardroom or with a boyfriend or with her young children, and to watch that voice develop. That is a gift. And it is amazing to me how many women have suffered something in their childhood. I was working with a Black minister who, when we went through this, because she was one of them, and I decided to gently probe, and her eyes filled with tears, and she said, generations of women in my family have been pushed aside or not listened to or not considered important. And I have a 5-year-old daughter, and I am not going to let that happen to her.
Yeah. Yeah. Family of origin does so much, affects us in so many ways. And it's very interesting to know, even in your voice. But there's something profound about that because, we there's this metaphor. Does that person have a voice?
Yes. Yes.
But there's something very deep rooted and very profound about the simple um, ability for somebody to learn just speaking up compared to the metaphorical idea of, did that person have a voice? Does that person have a voice? Does that
Right.
entity have a voice? So, when it comes to image, it's all about trying to
Yeah.
make the person stand out so that they can be heard, right? So, there's so much there to
Yep.
unpack further when it
Mm.
comes to the psychology of it all. So amazing, Susan. So we wrap up just because we like to give everybody a summary of the show, quick summary. So if they don't catch a whole show, at least they can like get the summary. So if there's one takeaway from today that you want the audience to learn, just one nugget, what would that one thing be when it comes to voice and image?
That you have the ability to command a room or to make wonderful sense to people with whom you are in conversation, because it is within you. And if you drop those shoulders and breathe into your belly and then begin that conversation, using the pauses to highlight things, using pauses to attract attention, everybody can do that. And you can practice it 5 minutes at a time with certain people in your life or in certain occasions. And you will be amazed at how you will grow from that.
Yeah. So the major tip here, because we go, I asked for the takeaway, asked for a tip, and it sounds like the tip is really the idea of dropping the shoulders and the breathing that you explained so thoroughly. Is there a tool or is there a guide or a checklist or anything that you can direct the audience to learn more?
No, because I'm one of the few people who does what I do. There are public speaking coaches, many of them, but I'm one of the few who does work with broadcast. So there isn't one, but you can always go to my website, which is Susan Murphy Vosat. And here I'll clue you in. Vosat is TV shorthand for voice over sound on tape. It's just a little acronym.
I love
And
that.
murphyvosat.com. And you can learn more about me and what I do. And you know what? If there's anybody who really wants a checklist, you email me through the website and I'll make you one, because I think, Christine, that's a great idea. I should have one.
Awesome. So with the hashtag to the audience, Waste Up Wardrobe with the hashtag voice and shine, if you put that into our comments, and we'll know that you'd be interested in a checklist like that, and we'll get that checklist to you. Thank you for that offer, Susan. And finally, an action item. Let's put everybody into action for like somehow to practice this on a very, very fundamental level. Do you have an action item for the audience?
An action item. When I first work with my broadcasters, what I will do is we'll practice breath work together. And there's a whole practice that is part yogic, part singing teacher, part just me being in the business for so long. And we'll practice the breath work. And then I'll say, okay, you're going to inhale. And while you're inhaling, I'm going to say, hi, I'm Susan Murphy, at which point you will introduce yourself to me. And that's the practice, because I want you to think about the air and energy coming up from the diaphragm. And when you introduce yourself to someone, we do tend to be bolder, and we want to make sure people get our first and especially our last names. How many times have you been introduced to someone and you might get their first name, but they swallow the last name? So one good practice with anybody in your family, little breath work, drop your shoulders, breathe a couple of times. Hi, I'm Susan Murphy, and have them introduce themselves to you.
All right. I love that. Susan, this was such a interesting conversation, an area that, like you said, you're one of the very few people that does this, if not maybe the only that I've met.
Oh,
But but such an essential element to how we show up, especially if we're showing up on camera, whether it's TV or on mic, on radio or podcast. I mean, this is the way the world is operating now, really through a lot of
right.
media. So thank you for being here. We're very delighted that you were. And there you have it, Waist Up Wardrobe Nation. How your voice is definitely a part of your image. And it's kind of an essential part for how you're showing up. Because if you're introducing yourself to a potential client and you say, hi, I'm Christine Vartanian, that is a lot less effective than saying, hi, I'm Christine Vartanian. How can I serve you? So there you have it. Waist Up Wardrobe episode 158. And join us again next week at 11:30 Pacific time, not Central, Pacific time here on Facebook as we stream a new fresh show. And next week is going to be quite interesting. We're going to give you a tour of an entirely freshly new interior designed home that I got to design for a client in Florida, but we're going to showcase it on camera and talk to the client that got to have her dream home built. So see you next time.
I can't believe the time went so fast. That was so much fun. We got to cover so much. Thank you for that.
Oh, I really appreciate it. I loved having you on the show. I mean, because what you do ties really into a lot of the work that I do.
Yes.
And I just think there's a cool synergy there. So thank you for agreeing to be on the show and for the really amazing content. So we'll be it's live. So we went live, and this will be on YouTube and other platforms, of
Great.
course. So you can direct anybody to the show if you felt like it. And I would love to stay connected, Susan. So maybe potentially we can do something in the future together.
I would love that. Like if you ever did like a panel where you get a couple of people on and you could do your magic and I could do my magic, it kind of would be like, Stacy and from What Not to Wear. Stacy and what's his name? We could make them over a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think there's a lot of partnership potential here.
I'd love that.
Also, I've met some really stellar guests getting guests through Podmatch and other sources too. But I'm trying to put a community of experts together where we can come together and partner or just throw around ideas like a mastermind, because I found so much great synergy, just like I did with you. And I just feel like we can be a great basically a panel of experts that share, that partner, that refer, that I don't know where it would go. I'd like to let it grow organically, but I would love to bring everybody into this house that I'm building. And so I was going to ask you, could I send you an email about it once I get that launched?
Yes, please do. I would be honored. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. And
it was fun. Thank you.
Yeah. Rick, do you have any questions for Susan?
Rick, you were fabulous.
Oh, thank you.
Obviously, I mean, it's what do they say about the movies? When you don't notice the music, you know it's good.
Yeah,
I didn't notice you.
Yeah.
You know it's good.
Well,
yes, he's the visible man behind the whole production.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
There's always someone, right?
Yeah. Thank God.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Susan. I enjoyed hearing your insight and tips, and I'll certainly use those in my practice.
Drop your shoulders. Yeah. Yeah. I hope I see you again soon, Christine. I look forward to any sort of collaboration we can come up with. That'd be great.
Where are you located, Susan?
Charlotte. Not
that it matters, because I do all my work all over the country. Everything's done virtually now, but it's good to know where everybody's from.
Charlotte. Yep. And if you ever needed me to come out to Los Angeles, I'm right there. Or Orange County, wherever you are. Yeah.
Sounds amazing. It's a great place to visit too. So yeah.
I bet it is. Yep.
All right. Well, have a great rest of your day.
Do the same.
All right. Bye, Susan.
That was amazing. I thought it was a really great topic. What do you think?
That was really good. Yeah, it was good. It's definitely unique.
Definitely unique, but it tied in so beautifully with the image consulting, right? It's or just not image consulting necessarily, but branding yourself and how that is as important as your wardrobe and how you show up with your voice. Like, you know, are you going to start wearing the cap anytime soon? Because I'd love to see the red waist up wardrobe. It doesn't have to be the red one. It could be the blue one. I got you a lot of them, but I'd love to see you with it.
Okay. Well, when I'm on the show, but this is your show, remember?
It is my show, but you're my producer, and I want you to represent.
Okay.
Okay. Like when you're talking to the client, like right now, just have it on. You have to write it into my contract, Rick. All right. Let's do the speedy recap.
Yeah.
I have the show all lined up for next week, and I just want to know realistically, like if I get that to you tomorrow, like by Friday, the thumb, the description, everything, will you be able to get it up on Fridays, or what would be the day? Because we need to get a little bit. I need to pre-promote, especially this episode's coming up, but I need to start really focusing on the pre-promotion for as we move forward. So what would be ideal? Friday.
How much pre-production stuff do I need to do? Are you just sending me assets or what?
What I usually do, so like the thumb, right? The thumb and the description with the episode number. That's it. That's all I'm talking about.
Saturday at the latest.
And then but to get it up when? Like, can we get it up on Monday? So that way I have 3 days.
The asset today or tomorrow. I can have it up Saturday at the latest.
Okay. All right. I kind of want to know that because
I'm out all day tomorrow. What happened? And most of the day on Saturday until the evening.
I mean, I don't care when you do it, as long as you do it on Saturday, because I'd be putting a lot of pressure on myself to get it done, because there's a creative work too. So I want, like,
you have my permission to put pressure on yourself to get this done early.
Okay, do I have permission to put pressure on you to get it up on Monday?
At least by Monday. I'm always waiting for you.
No, I know, but sometimes even if I get it to you, it seems like there's things get in the way. That's why I want to have a plan. You know what I mean? Like, I think if we have a plan and you know when to expect it, then you can allot for getting it done by a certain time. Right?
Okay, we'll talk about this a little bit more after we're on air.
Sure.
Or off air.
Yeah. Let's get the speedy recap up. Let's get the speedy recap up. We have a lot to talk about, actually, so let's do this so I can. You're getting ready for the speedy, right?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for you.
Oh, I thought you put me on camera by myself. For some reason, I see you by me.
I'm waiting for you to say I'm ready, so I can just go solo.
I'm ready.
In case. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm ready. As an entrepreneur or a business owner, you need to show up with your best professional self on camera. But is your voice part of your image? Well, this episode, we talk about, yes, your voice is a huge part of your image, and it should be as polished as your wardrobe so that you can show up with your best professional voice, best professional self on camera.
That's good.
Good, not bad, right? I mean,
yeah.
Okay.
You need to turn the light down a little bit, or because when you lean forward for this, it's really hot. Yeah.
That seems dark.
The thing is, up just a tad. I can always up it. I can't down it.
I see. Is that good? Is that okay? Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Yeah, because by the time you lean forward, the exposure is better. And I can always lighten it from there. Okay.
Okay. Perfect. Thanks.
Yep. All right. I am going to mute.
Okay. In Waist Up Wardrobe, episode 158, your voice is as important as your image. No. In Waist Up Wardrobe, episode 158, your voice is part of your image. We discuss. Wait, what was I going to say? Oh. In Waist Up Wardrobe, episode 158, your voice is part of your image. The Waist Up Wardrobe weekly wrap up, in a nutshell, boiled down to this. The main takeaway is when you're speaking on or off camera in the media, whether you're on TV or in radio, drop your shoulders and breathe from your diaphragm. That was the main takeaway from this episode with our guest. Tip. Susan What was her website? Maybe you could put it up on the. I think it was Susan Murphy.
Susan Murphy Vosot, VOSOT.
Okay, because I'm going to use that as the tool. Okay. Tip. Tip. Okay. Our expert gave us a key tip, and that is practice using that breathing technique by dropping your shoulders, breathing from your diaphragm. Use that and practice speaking and see how your voice register changes. Finally, is that okay for the tip? Can I move on to the tool?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, that's good.
A key tool is a key tool to use was Susan Murphy's website, because she is one of the very few people that works with people on how to show up on camera or in radio with their voice. And that website was susanmurphyvosot.com at Susan Murphy, VOSOT.com. Go there and learn more. And finally, a takeaway, just practice, practice, practice.
Okay.
Good enough?
Yep,
And
that'll work.
So let's kill the thing.